Today I'm going to want you to choose a color to paint your portrait. So if we think back to yesterday, you chose one of the photos that are in your supply kit, and you went ahead and transferred your photo. When we paint these, we're not going to be painting them using realistic skin color. That's something I teach you how to do in painting 2, and we continue to work with that in painting 3 because it's so challenging to do. And instead we're going to be doing something called a monochromatic color scheme. Now, a monochromatic color scheme means that we're going to be using just one single color to paint our portrait. So here is a partially completed example from last trimester, and you can see that I have used the warm blue, and to make the warm blue lighter, I have used water, and to make the warm blue darker, I have used black. And if I think back to the beginning of learning how to paint, we did something similar to this when we created our value scale. So you can see here that my painting uses a value scale of just one color. Now this is the different color blue than here, but you get the idea. So today what I want you to do is to use your sketchbook, and I'm just gonna find a section, a blank page, and I'm going to pick a color that I'm going to use for my project. And I'm going to make a little bit of a value scale so that I can have that as reference in my sketchbook. When we look at the colors, we're obviously going to be using the black to make the color darker, right? So I could take a little black out and put it here on my palette or on my paper. And then you saw I cleaned and dried my paintbrush off. And if we think back to working with the fruit, when I add a little bit of water, using a clean dry paintbrush, you can see that I can spread that paint to make a quick value scale using just black. I can do that with a color as well. For this project, you can pick whatever color you like, with one exception. I do not recommend this yellow because it's really challenging to make this particular yellow lighter. The darker yellow does work. So here is a partially finished example using that darker yellow color. You can see that you end up primarily making that color darker. And when you do make it darker, it makes kind of a greenish hue. So you do need to be aware of that. But it does work. So you can use any of the colors, just don't use this one because it's too hard to work with. Even this yellow is challenging, so I do recommend one of these 5. If you do want something that approaches realistic skin, using the warm red can be a good solution. So this is the warm red done adding the black. So you can see that when you add black to the warm red, you end up with a series of browns along with the red color. And so this can be a good solution, like I said, if you want something that approaches realistic skin. Otherwise, you're looking at using one of the other colors and just not having it be realistic at all, which is fine. So what I want you to do in your sketchbook is go ahead and choose the color you're going to use for your project. I want you to take that color just on its own. So there's the color all by itself. I'm gonna take my paintbrush, I'm gonna squeeze it dry. I cleaned it out, and I'm going to practice this method of moving paint to make a value scale that doesn't have boxes. Okay, so when we worked with the concept of a value scale at the beginning of class, we wanted it to have boxes so that we could see the separate values. I don't have separate values on a human face. I just have gradually changing values. And so I want you to practice that. So I have done from this color out here to light right now. And now I'm going to experiment with what it looks like when I mix this color with black. And then what this does is it shows me where my darker colors will need to be in terms of their tonal quality. So if I imagine using this color blue for my portrait, right, I can now come and I can look at this photograph and I can clearly see that I will need the blue mixed with the black to work with his hair, and probably just the blues with his shirt. And then I'm going to kind of come up with a color in between, I think, so that it is blue mixed with some black for his face. So you can see I can lighten that up a little bit. So I want you to kind of make sure that you have in your head the range of tones that you can make with the color you want to use today for your portrait in your sketchbook, because this gives me some idea of where I'm going to put these sorts of colors on my painting as I move forward.